Welcome to my isolation pod here in the UK. This episode, we're going global. I've got in touch with a number of my Facebook friends that live all over the world to get an idea of what is happening where they live and how they and their governments are coping with the current crisis. We'll be chatting to Judith in New Zealand, Quentin in Spain, Dina lives in Greece, Peter and Linda on Malta, Katie over in New York, Carl in the Czech Republic, and James, he's in China. Which, of course, a massive country, so I don't know where you are in comparison with Wuhan, where it all kicked off, of course.
Well, Wuhan is in the north. I think it's about like 6 or 7 hours away from me, by train. So I'm not really too sure how far away it is from me. I never checked. I didn't want to know.
Well, it's good to see you looking well and healthy. I mean, it must have been quite scary when it all kicked off and you were over there.
It was the first thing that happened was the denial kicks in, and it's quite weird. But I think straight away I was thinking, "Oh, this is a load of. There's nothing to worry about. What's people getting worried about? It'll be fine." And I didn't take it seriously. And then after a couple of weeks and things weren't dying down and things were, the numbers were starting to go up very quickly. I woke up one morning and got like 100 messages off friends and family, even people that I hadn't spoke to for years, going, are you okay? Asking if I was all right. And that kind of, because really strangely, because of the lockdown in China, because I don't speak Chinese, I wasn't really privy to what was really going on. So in a way, and I was not in contact with anyone. I had my boss. My boss was saying, "Oh, it's really bad," but I wasn't able to really kind of get a clue of really how bad the situation was. So, because there was no one here in Shenzhen, it was a ghost city. Because not only did what happened was it happened just during the New Year holiday, which they have from January to mid-Feb, and that's when it kicked off. So everyone was stuck in China in their visiting their grandparents and in their original homes, because Shenzhen's a city that no one's from Shenzhen. It's like a migrant city because it's a very, very new city. So during the holiday, the city empties anyway. And I don't know if you've seen the film 28 Days Later, where he wakes up in the hospital and he goes outside, there's no one there. That's what my life was like for 2 weeks, because there was no one in the city. And I walked around and I wouldn't see a single soul for hours, in a extremely busy city. It's a crazy, there's so many people here in Shenzhen. And so that was really surreal. That was quite a surreal experience.
If all the world countries were in a primary school class, I would say New Zealand would be the one always getting the gold stars and a bit of the teacher's pet. Because Judith, she seems to have done it right, doesn't she? I mean,
yeah, she's got the backing of the nation, I think. It's and the recovery rate is really fast as well. But I think they stopped it really quickly. All the moves they took, and having a 4-week shutdown rather than, we'll try it for 2 weeks. And everyone was so shocked. I don't think people really had time to think about it, because we were told, we've got these alert levels from 1 to 4. And we were tootling along at alert level 1. And then I know I was out shopping for work. And my daughter messaged me and said, "Have you seen the news? We're going to alert level 4 in 2 days." I'm like, "Ah!" And so everyone was just like, "What's happening?" And it was a panic to sort everything out and type your loose ends. And then we had glorious sunshine for the first 10 days.
obviously what we're going through right now across the world is devastating, but here, particularly in New York, has been an eye-opening experience for all of us. What it has proven is actually New Yorkers, if we come together, can at least help flatten this curve that is causing such astronomical craziness that's going on here right now. The city itself is hurting, I'm not going to lie. We're all pretty shaken by it. We've been on lockdown now, I think it's since the middle of March. And actually weeks before that, many theatres and hospitality type service industries also, you know, had started clambering down on work. So some people have now been out of work for 9 weeks. And we obviously have our stimulus packages and things going into action, like obviously England do and other countries, but New York being as expensive as it is, with May 1st coming, rent on some people's minds right now is not the best thing to be, you know, concerned about. Andrew Cuomo is the governor of New York, and Mayor de Blasio have done, I think, a really good job in, you know, pulling the city together and locking us down and trying to make sure that we are safe and as safe as we can be. But no, it's crazy. And a reality check for me was actually, I have a dog, so I was allowed out to walk my dog, and I passed, unfortunately, one of the hospitals. I didn't even think about it as I was walking past. I was like, what is this white? Why is there a white crate outside? And then all of a sudden, like, emotion hit me, and I realized that, you know, it was unfortunately one of the freezer trucks that now each hospital does have outside of it. And it's just harrowing to see that, you know, that much life, unfortunately, is being lost because of this wretched COVID-19.
We're staying home.
Yeah.
So we're not going out except if we have any, you know, to buy some food and medicine. That's, you know, nothing else, or walk.
So pretty much the same as us over here. So how's your government and that dealing with it all, and how are your hospitals coping?
Look, I don't know, maybe you read the news papers, but Greece is one of the countries that are doing, I think, is the best. So far, we have only 119 deaths. That's all in the whole country. And because everything is under control, because our government took measurements very early. You know, when in Italy, we had this outbreak of the deaths and cases of COVID, we immediately took measurements, very strict. So everything was locked down, everything, schools, coffee shops, restaurants, everything. And that's why they had everything under control. In a very good shape. So,
And
you know,
I guess it's not to do with having money, because you're still in the doodah from your Europe issues, aren't you? So it's seems to be more down to them having a good idea and doing the right thing rather than putting money behind anything.
well, look, of course, the economy is suffering because everything is closed. That's for sure. But one of the measurements that our government took is to to support all the workers that had to stop their job with extra money, like 800 euros for each one who had to stop the work because of the COVID, because of the lockdown. So this, and also the business, they support the business with money. So that's the situation. And also the taxes, the taxes, they put the taxes down, and that is some you know, relief. Of course, it doesn't solve the problem because the economy is suffering, but it's something that I don't know how many countries in the world did the same thing.
Thanks to the Maltese authorities, they got us onto an Air Malta repatriation flight, just 13 of us and a baby on board, would you believe? We eventually toddled into the house, somewhat exhausted, having had sort of 14 days of not much fun and cost. Luckily we are safe and well with not having contracted anything on the journey. Our initial restrictions were, I think it's worldwide, 14 days from when we landed, so we weren't allowed out of the house at all. People had to get shopping for us, any medication we required, etc. A little story for you here. The police checked on us day 4, and because we were so tired, we actually didn't hear them knock. And it was only through the fast thinking of, funnily enough, our next door neighbour, who was also a police officer, who knew we were in the house, and he managed to get hold of me on this iPad and woke us up to sort of say, "You're about to be fined €6,000. Can you get and show your face outside the balcony, please?" So we missed it, but they're checking on that. Isolation-wise, obviously the 2-meter rule exists over here. Groups of 3 are not allowed.
We've only got the one airport, fortunately, but are they letting anybody into Malta other than?
No. The process of coming into the airport, again, maybe they're doing it as a matter of course now, but the plane itself was taken to the cargo area, not the normal, Ryanair racks where they outside the terminal building. Bussed with everyone standing 2 meters apart to the passport control, and then the strictness of coming in was you'll remember the zone hopefully. As you come into the glass doors, passport is what 25-30 meters in front of you. Before that entrance, there was a full body scan, temperature, everything else, hand in of a piece of paper stating address, etc., etc. Passport checked with your ID, which has got your address on, of course. And then the other side of passport control, before you went down the escalator, again blocked off with a screening process, another temperature check, second piece of paper, which actually instituted the police check on us.
Life's fairly normal, I would say. So we've been on quarantine for the better part of 5 weeks now. But the essentials they're open. So the supermarkets, the gas stations, etc. So we're slowly getting back to normal life now. So they're opening up hobby shops, sports events, sporting events. You can do some training. And I read in the news the other day that hopefully by June 8th, everything should be back to normal.
Really?
So for me, yeah. So I think I've said this to many friends and my wife while I've been over here. I think the Czech government reacted really well. So as soon as there was any concerns, they went straight into lockdown. They wasn't waiting for anything to happen. Mandatory face masks in public, and that's still valid. And I believe that this is going to be valid for the foreseeable future. I know
until the vaccine, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know from reading the news or looking at TV that still face masks aren't mandatory in the UK, and even like news programs, they have the face masks on. So I think it's completely different. My vibe is completely different to the UK, and it's unfortunate because the numbers are continuing to grow. Where Czech Republic, I think we're under 2,000 deaths. So it's positive, at least anyway.
So Quentin, you're in Spain, and that's been hit pretty badly, hasn't it? Not perhaps as bad as Italy, but you've had it pretty bad there.
It's been pretty bad. The number of cases, number of deaths. The main thing from our point of view is obviously the lockdown criteria. I think are the strictest in the world.
And what is that then?
Effectively, I'm allowed to go out on my own to either a supermarket, a hospital appointment or a doctor's appointment, the dentist or a chemist. I'm not allowed to go out for a walk. My wife and I can't go out together. It's the longest we've been together. Now we're into week 6, so I think it's the longest time we spent together as a couple in 34 years. So everybody's having to adjust both from a working environment and also a home living environment.
We're going into level 3 on Tuesday next week, which is because I've got a cafe, and we can operate for people to collect orders. We've got a window with a screen so people can come to get a coffee, but we'll put it through another window so that no contact. I think you've got contactless payment. We call it PayWave here, so they can pay that way or pay online.
So you can do that at the moment, or is that the level next?
No, at the moment, the only thing you can do is the supermarket or essential services. So if you need a blanket or some...
See, so some of the restaurants can do takeaway at the moment.
No takeaway at all. Everything's locked down.
So you went further.
Yeah. So I know in Australia, a lot of takeaway was still open. I know in the UK, a lot is still open. But there's no libraries, no gyms, no museums, no collectives. You couldn't go for a swim at the beach. You couldn't go fishing, because it was things that would pull on the resources. If there was a crisis and you went out in your boat and you got stuck and had to get rescued, the effect it would have on the lifeguard, the police, the fire service, the ambulance, when they might already be under pressure. As it happens, they haven't really been under that much pressure because it's been taken in hand. I feel more sorry for the people in the supermarkets dealing with disgruntled people who can't buy flour. But yeah, it was a tight lockdown, but you could go to the supermarket, you might queue for a little bit. I mean, it's nothing like the UK anyway. There's only 5 million people here. So,
no, but pro rata proportion, there's still the argument we should have done it as early as you did. But yeah.
Well, I think nobody really knew what was going on. It was all on the low key. And I know we were first reading, it's an overreaction. It's no worse than, it's not as bad as the flu. It is for vulnerable people, but generally healthy people will you might get it, you might flick it off. There's no need to hide away. Normal flu is much worse. And then it transpires that possibly that isn't the case. You hear, the number of people dying, and then, look at America, that's horrendous. It's just off the charts.
And hospital-wise, you've not had so many deaths and such. Hospital-wise, they're all fully kitted out and not got any shortages.
There were no shortages because we don't have too many cases getting in the hospital. That's why I said at the beginning that they put everything under control. See, our politicians were quite smart to listen and follow the instructions of the medical experts. So they didn't do whatever, what the medical expert told them to do, they did it. So, and that's the success, I think, so far. And also every day at 6 o'clock, we have a special report from the medical and the political personnel of what is going on.
The cultures, a lot of people wear masks outside anyway, but for the pollution and everything. So I guess that wasn't unusual.
No, yeah, you saw all that stuff anyway. But then, you'd get into trouble if you didn't have one on. You couldn't get on the metro without a mask. They wouldn't let you on the metro without it. So they were pretty strict. For example, getting on the metro in China is different from getting on the metro in London, because every exit you have to pass a full-on security. thing anyway, normally. So you've got a metal detector, and everyone has to put their bags through a detector as well. And that's normal. So, you know, they had a lot of security stuff already in place where they wouldn't have that in England already set up. So it's kind of quite, it had its advantages, I guess, you know, having a scary virus in a city that is already very full on in terms of its security protocol.
And as far as you're aware, the government have done all the right things, and most people are quite happy with.
Well, yeah, the government have been as strict as possible. You know, obviously you can walk around, but you couldn't go into other people's neighborhoods. So if you didn't live in a certain area, there's security guards at the top of every road. So if you had a really valid reason, like an emergency, or there's a family member that needed food or something, then if you wrote your mobile number down and they took your temperature, they'd let you in. But you couldn't go to any shops on that street if you needed to. I mean, all the shops were closed anyway, you know, during, you know, for a good 8 weeks. So almost 2 months, everything was properly locked down. Everything was closed. Only the supermarket opened for a couple of hours. It was pretty chaotic going into the supermarket. But yeah, I think everyone knows. I think because they've experienced SARS, they're very clued up on how to behave. They're very clued up on what they need to do to get it under control. And, you know, there hasn't been any resistance from the people. Everyone's just got on with it, you know, and accepted that.
Has it sort of lightened up now, the quarantine, the lockdown relaxed a bit?
Well, yes, it's almost like it's almost like it is normal now. They just everyone's just very still, you know, 100% masks all the time. Hand sanitizers available on entering supermarkets, any shop, they've all got that stuff there. And the temperature is being taken at every point. You know, if you enter the metro station, you've got your temperature checked. You enter the supermarket shops, you've got your temperature checked. So, you know, all that stuff is still in place to catch people who, you know, obviously might be on the verge of having the virus, or the symptoms rather. So yeah, I think that I feel like I'm in the safest place at the moment, because I know that in a short period of time, China have really been able to, you know, get on top of the numbers, you know, something that America and Europe don't look like they're doing.
When all this started, people were talking about, well, when it gets back to normal. I mean, what we knew as a normal lifestyle is going to be completely different. In Spain, the lockdown has been extended to the 11th of May. They are debating how or whether to allow young children and teenagers out and how that will work. So the idea is they can get them out of the house with one parent and up to 3 children, and they're all allowed to go out and walk and run around. But I think, I mean, if you look at the curves that all the countries you'll see in the internet now, Spain is getting better. There are more recoveries. There are fewer cases being reported. But if you lift all the restrictions at the same time and the virus kicks off again, you're going to go back to square one. So I think we'll find the travel will be restricted. We will be allowed to go about our jobs, but you'll have to have a reason for doing something. They're talking about easing schools open again between May and June. But again, if you move into the summer, they normally shut at the end of June in Spain anyway, so there'd be little point in doing that. and I don't know what the world is going to look like.
We've already noticed in the last day or two, people have become quite complacent because we've been told we're going to level 3. And you can see the social distancing people aren't being as rigid about it. And I think you've got to be really careful that we may have caught it and stopped it, but it may be the case that it hadn't really hit us too hard yet, and it's still out there, because they said a lot of people can be in lockdown and have it, but just mild. So then you'll come out of lockdown with a sniffle and go and chat to loads of people, and you might just be a carrier of it.
I suppose
So
I suppose the UK government was saying, well, we don't want to lock down too early for that probably the same reason. I don't know, or they might not haven't got a clue what on earth they're talking about.
I think, well, we had the advantage of watching the rest of the world, and it got here. You know, there's a chain, and it got here to us last.
Like everything.
Like, you know, electricity.
But you had Lord of the Rings. What are you moaning about, for goodness sake?
I've still seen it, thank God. But yeah, so I think it's easy for people to look and learn from everybody else's mistake. That's the advantage New Zealand had.
The positives are that you learn to adapt. From my work as a financial consultant, drive 25, 30,000 miles a year. Or I used to. Now everything is done like this, either by Zoom or by Skype or face-to-face meetings from that point of view. So people are coping very well. We didn't have the panic buying or the panic situations that you had in the UK. And also most people respected the lockdown that was advised by the government. There are police checkpoints now who will randomly stop people and find out where they've been and what they've been doing. And the fines can range, I think, up to about £15,000. So, I mean, that's if you're abusive to a police officer who stops you. But if you just, I've been stopped twice, and they've asked where I was going, so going to the supermarket, showed them a shopping list, and the other time I was stopped when I was coming back, and he asked to see the receipt, showed the receipt, he sent it to me, and that was fine. So it's been hard. Obviously, again, the financial markets have affected a lot of people's savings from the expat point of view here. But on a day-to-day living point of view, we haven't run short of any food. There's been no issues at the supermarkets. People queue, they take their time. The hardest thing is that you can't go out for a drink or out for a meal.
But the city has completely slowed down, and economically you can see the change. Certainly, you know, grocery shopping, we were, I think, one of the first people or first communities in the world to start having stickers on the floor. Very quickly those came out, and you know, when you went shopping, or you still now, funnily enough, this week we now have to wear masks. It's a rule. You're not going to get arrested for it, but we are required to now by the governor of New York to wear masks, and especially when we go into grocery stores, most of them now won't allow you in unless you have a mask on. Reusable bags, there's a bit of an argument going on there at the moment, because obviously people are concerned that if you bring your reusable bag, you could be spreading it. So now we're down to paper bags, which most stores give you, which if you're trying to do a huge shop has its own problems because you don't have a car, so you're just ladled with paper bags, which tend to rip, and that has a good old at least it's humorous when you try and get on the subway. But there I mean, obviously this is my home and this is where I live, but it's not normal right now at all. And people have you know, what do you think? When do you think we're going to go back to normal? And I said, there is no normal anymore. It's all changed.
Well, hopefully getting back to normal soon. So I think we over here, it's been very tough being stuck at home, but it's obviously for the greater good. And I just hope that other people aren't thinking only about themselves, but obviously the people around them and the people that are more vulnerable. So just to try to ride it out a little bit, and we'll hopefully get through this very, very soon.
So my thanks to Judith, Quentin, Dina, Peter and Linda, Katie, Kyle and James. Wherever you are, stay safe.